What if I told you the strongest bonds in art are often the most invisible? Come closer. Look at this sculpture. Really look. See the way the light catches the sweep of its form, how the polished stainless steel curves and flows like liquid frozen in time. You can trace the sharp edges with your eyes. Follow the lines that create a sense of movement and grace. It feels solid, whole, as if it were carved from a single massive block of metal. But it wasn't. This piece is an assembly of many parts, joined together with incredible heat and precision. You see the beauty, but you don't see the joins. You don't see the blinding flash of the arc or the steady hand that guided it. This is the secret world of precision welding, where raw industrial process meets the delicate touch of an artist. It is a world of paradoxes. It is about using immense heat, thousands of degrees Celsius, to create objects of subtle beauty and quiet strength, and coaxing them into organic shapes that can fool the eye and stir the soul. The welds are the hidden skeleton, the silent framework that gives the sculpture its integrity. The artist's greatest trick is to make you forget that this skeleton even exists, to present you with a seamless vision where the magic of its creation remains a mystery. The journey from a simple sheet of metal to a finished work of art is a long one, filled with noise, sparks, and intense focus. It is a testament to human skill and ingenuity. We often think of art as something gentle, born from a brushstroke or the soft shaping of clay. But here, art is born from fire. It is forged in a crucible of intense light and sound, where a creator must wear a protective helmet not just to see, but to shield themselves from the very energy they are using to build. This process is both brutal and incredibly refined, demanding a unique blend of engineering knowledge and artistic intuition from the maker. The finished piece stands as a quiet monument to this process. It invites you to touch its cool surface, to marvel at its form. But now you know the secret. Hidden within its flawless exterior are lines of fusion, points where separate pieces became one. These invisible bonds are more than just structural necessities. They are the narrative of the sculpture's birth. Every great metal sculpture begins not with a bang, but with a whisper. It starts as a simple idea, a fleeting image in the artist's mind. This initial spark must be captured, nurtured, and translated into a language that metal can understand. This is the design phase, a quiet and contemplative stage that is just as crucial as the fiery welding that will follow. Visual progression, rough pencil sketch, detailed technical drawing, small 3D printed model. The artist might begin with a series of loose sketches in a notebook, exploring shapes and forms with the freedom of a pencil. These first drawings are about feeling and emotion, capturing the gesture of a figure, capturing the dynamic energy of an abstract shape. It is the soul of the work being put to paper. From these initial, often messy sketches, the idea begins to solidify. The sculptor refines the design, creating more detailed drawings with precise measurements and angles. They must think like an architect, considering how the final piece will stand and how its weight will be distributed. This is where the art of welding begins to influence the design itself. The artist must plan where the joins will be. Will a seam be hidden along a natural contour? Or will it be placed where it can be ground down and polished into complete invisibility? Each decision about a weld is also a decision about the final aesthetic of the sculpture. In the modern workshop, technology often joins the traditional sketchbook. Many sculptors now use three-dimensional modeling software to bring their ideas to life digitally. To view the sculpture from every possible angle, to test its proportions, to plan the fabrication process with incredible accuracy. They can create a virtual model of each individual metal plate, ensuring a perfect fit before a single piece is cut. This digital blueprint is invaluable, minimizing waste and allowing the artist to solve complex geometric puzzles on the screen. The computer model becomes the definitive guide for the entire build. Once, it is time to bring in the fire and turn that story into a solid, lasting reality. Once the design is finalized in a digital file, templates are made. Metal sheets are carefully cut. The separate parts are laid out like a giant puzzle. This stage is all about preparation and precision. Every edge must be clean and perfectly shaped to match its counterpart. The quiet, thoughtful work of the design phase is now complete. The pieces are ready. The story has been written. Now it is time to bring in the fire and turn that story into a solid, lasting reality. Now we move into the heart of the workshop where the air hums with the sound of machinery and the scent of ozone. This is where the cut metal pieces are joined not with bolts or glue, but by fusing them into a single continuous entity. The two most common methods for this artistic alchemy are TIG and MIG welding. TIG, MIG. Though both use an electric arc to create immense heat, they are very different tools, each suited for different tasks. Think of them as two different kinds of paintbrushes for an artist who paints with molten metal. One is for fine lines and delicate details, the other for broad, strong strokes. First, let's look at TIG welding. TIG stands for tungsten inert gas. This is the process of choice for artists who demand ultimate control and a beautiful, clean finish. The TIG welder holds a torch in one hand with a non-consumable tungsten electrode. In the other hand, they feed a thin filler rod into the molten pool. It is a slow, methodical process requiring immense hand-eye coordination. TIG welds look like a neat stack of dimes, tiny and incredibly strong. Perfect for thin materials like stainless steel, aluminum, and for invisible joins in fine art. Then there is MIG welding, metal inert gas. MIG is the workhorse, speed and efficiency. The MIG torch has a wire continuously fed through the center. The wire is both electrode and filler metal. The welder pulls a trigger and the machine feeds wire and shielding gas automatically. Faster and easier to learn than TIG. Excellent for thicker pieces and for laying down lots of material, quickly forming the structural backbone of large sculptures. The choice between TIG and MIG is a critical artistic and engineering decision. Does the sculpture need delicate, visible TIG work, or raw strength and speed from MIG for hidden frames? Many sculptures use both methods. Use MIG to rapidly assemble the main structure, then switch to TIG for detailed exterior work. Understanding when and how to use each technique is fundamental for any metal sculptor. The real magic of welding, the place where science and skill truly intersect, happens in a tiny, brilliant puddle of liquid metal called the weld pool. This shimmering, incandescent dot is where the base metal and the filler metal melt and merge under the intense heat of the electric arc. To an outsider, it is just a blindingly bright light. But to the welder, peering through the dark lens of their helmet, the weld pool is an entire universe of information. It is the central focus of the entire process, and learning to read and control it is the key to creating a perfect weld. The artist watches the weld pool with absolute concentration. Its size, shape, color tell them everything they need to know. A pool that is too large means the heat is too high, risking burning a hole right through the metal. A pool that is too small and sluggish means the heat is too low, resulting in a weak weld that doesn't fully penetrate the joint. The artist constantly adjusts their hands and posture, travel speed, the angle of their torch, and the distance of the arc to maintain a pool that is just the right size and consistency. It must be fluid enough to flow and fuse the two pieces together, but not so fluid that it drips or sags. Controlling this pool is a delicate dance. With a TIG torch, the welder guides the pool along the seam with one hand, while the other hand rhythmically dabs the filler rod into the leading edge of the pool. Each dab adds material, cools the pool slightly, and creates the characteristic ripple pattern of a TIG weld. The timing of this two-handed coordination is crucial. Dip the rod too soon or too late, and the bead becomes uneven. Move the torch too fast or too slow, and the integrity of the entire join is compromised. It is a process that demands a calm mind and hands that have learned the rhythm through thousands of hours of practice. The science behind the pool is fascinating. The process uses a shielding gas, typically argon, which flows from the torch and envelops the weld area. This inert gas pushes away the oxygen and other atmospheric gases that would otherwise contaminate the molten metal, causing porosity and weakness. So the welder is not just managing heat and metal. They are managing a tiny, controlled atmosphere around the weld pool. Mastering this molten world is what separates a novice from a master. While the science of metallurgy and electricity provides the foundation for welding, the creation of a truly masterful weld is an act of human skill that borders on art itself. Good welding, especially the precise work required for sculpture, looks deceptively simple when performed by an expert. But this apparent ease is the result of years of dedicated practice. The hands, the eyes, and even the ears of the welder learn to work in perfect harmony. It is a physical skill, a muscle memory that cannot be learned from a book. You have to put in the time under the helmet. The process is a full-body experience. The welder learns to control their breathing, often holding their breath or exhaling slowly as they guide the torch along a critical seam. A sudden intake of breath can cause the hand to shake, ruining the perfect bead. The hands must be incredibly steady, moving with a smooth, unwavering motion, more like a slow-motion dance than a construction task. The eyes, protected by the dark helmet lens, are trained to see subtle cues in the color and flow of the molten metal. They learn to distinguish the cherry red of hot steel from the brilliant white hot of the arc itself. Even the sound is part of the feedback loop. A good, stable TIG arc produces a clean, crisp hissing sound. A MIG arc has a characteristic crackle, often compared to the sound of frying bacon. An experienced welder can hear changes in the arc's sound that indicate a problem. Perhaps the distance to the workpiece is wrong, or the gas flow is inconsistent. This auditory feedback, combined with the visual information from the weld pool, allows the artist to make dozens of micro-adjustments every second, without consciously thinking about them. It is an intuitive, reactive process. This deep, ingrained skill is what allows for true artistry. A master welder doesn't just follow a line, they feel the weld. They can anticipate how the metal will behave, how it will warp or pull as it cools, and they can compensate for it as they go. A metal sculpture is not like a painting that hangs protected on a gallery wall. Often, it is destined to live outdoors, exposed to the full force of nature. Relentless sun driving rain, freezing ice, powerful winds. People will interact with it. Children might see it as an impromptu climbing frame. For these reasons, the strength and durability of the sculpture are paramount. The art must also be good engineering. The beautiful form must be supported by uncompromising structural integrity, and that integrity comes directly from the quality of the welds. The artist must think like an engineer from the very beginning. The choice of metal is the first step. Stainless steel, weathering steel like Core 10, that forms a stable, rust-like protective layer, or aluminum for its light weight. Each material has different properties and requires a specific welding technique and filler material to create a strong, lasting bond. Using the wrong filler rod can lead to galvanic corrosion, causing the weld to deteriorate over time and the sculpture to fail from the inside out. Every join must be designed to withstand the stresses it will face. Testing is a critical, though often unseen, part of the process. While a finished sculpture won't be destructively tested, the artist will often create test coupons. These are small sample pieces of the same metal, welded with the same technique, that can be put through rigorous trials. They might be bent until they break to see if the failure occurs in the weld or in the parent metal. A good weld should be stronger than the metal around it. They can be cut open, polished, and etched to inspect a cross-section of the weld, revealing if the fusion is deep and free of defects, like porosity or cracks. This focus on longevity is what allows a sculpture to become a permanent part of a landscape. A well-made piece will stand for decades, even centuries, with minimal maintenance. The work is far from over when the final weld cools. What comes next transforms raw metal into polished art. This is the finishing stage, a labor-intensive process. Grinding, sanding, polishing. It can take as long, if not longer, than the welding itself. The goal is to make the evidence of the welding disappear. A raised, lumpy weld seam must be ground down until perfectly flush. The artist aims to create a seamless surface that tricks the eye. The process begins with powerful, noisy tools. An angle grinder with a coarse disc removes the bulk of the excess weld. It's a dusty, aggressive step. A steady hand and a good eye are required. Sparks fly as the grinder bites and the rough bead is flattened. The sculptor blends the join into the sculpture's planes, smoothing transitions. It's sculpting on a micro level with an abrasive wheel. The work then becomes progressively finer and more delicate. Flap discs are used to refine the shape. Then finer and finer grits of sandpaper. Hand files are used for tight spots. Sanding blocks provide controlled, even passes. Deep scratches become shallower until the surface feels smooth to the touch. It's tedious and repetitive, but essential. Each step erases the marks of the one before it, refining the surface. Ready for the final texture, a brushed satin look, or a flawless mirror polish. Now the surface is ready for its final treatment. Buffing with compounds brings out a brilliant shine. Applying a chemical patina adds rich colors to bronze or copper. For steel pieces, paint. For steel pieces, powder coat. For steel pieces, a clear sealant to prevent rust. This is the final act of hiding the work. The seam that was once obvious has now vanished. It has been absorbed into the whole, leaving a pure, uninterrupted form for the viewer to admire. Now, take a step back and look at the finished sculpture. Notice how the light plays across its surfaces, creating highlights and deep shadows. Look closely at the places where different planes and curves meet. These lines, whether they are sharp creases or gentle flowing transitions, are a map of the artist's decisions. A great sculptor does not just hide their welds, they integrate the very idea of seams into the language of the piece. They use these lines to guide the viewer's eye. They use these lines to create rhythm. They use these lines to define the form. A well-placed seam can be as expressive as a line drawn with a pencil. The choice to show or hide the weld is a fundamental part of the artistic expression. So, the next time you stand before a metal sculpture, towering monument in a city square, delicate piece in a quiet garden, allow yourself to look deeper. See beyond the overall shape, appreciate the details. Run your eyes along its edges. Try to find the lines where one piece of metal meets another. Imagine the intense flash of the welder's arc. Imagine the steady hand guiding the torch. Imagine the patient work of grinding and sanding that made the surface whole. Think of the silent strength contained within those invisible joins. These welds are the sculpture's unassuming heroes. They bear the weight. They resist the wind and rain. They hold the artist's vision together against the forces of time. The best welds do their job without calling any attention to themselves. They are like the grammar in a beautiful poem. You don't notice it, but its correctness is what allows the words to sing. The weld is the unsung craft that makes the art possible. It is the technical foundation upon which the entire aesthetic experience is built. Without its strength, there would be no lasting beauty. Precision welding is where craft science and art converge. It is a discipline that demands a deep understanding of materials, a steady hand honed by countless hours of practice, and an artist's eye for form and finish. It requires the courage to work with fire. It requires the patience to spend days polishing a single seam. When all these elements come together in the hands of a skilled creator, something magical happens. A cold industrial material like steel, bronze, aluminum is transformed. It becomes more than just metal. It becomes a message. This is the artistry of precision welding. It is the power to turn heavy, rigid plates into forms that suggest lightness and movement. It is the skill to create bonds so strong yet so subtle that they disappear from sight, allowing the sculpture to speak with a single unified voice. These invisible joins are the quiet, beating heart of the work. providing the silent strength that ensures a fleeting idea, once captured in metal, can live on for generations. They are not just a part of the process, they are the soul of the sculpture.